So hi guys, this is Listen, and this is episode 2 of the Sex Talks, and we're talking about the maturity of sex today. So I hope you had a nice weekend. I had a really nice weekend. It's in the morning. I'm like I want to do this and then start my day. So the maturity of sex. Today I decided to be a bit tribal. I'm really enjoying like my African roots and I'm really enjoying my African orientation and everything. And I'm finding it very beautiful actually being a Kikuyu woman, an African woman, and everything that comes with it. So when I think of the maturity of sex, I'm going to look at it from a traditional African setting, not like 100 years or 50 years ago, like 300, 500 years ago, how the African society viewed sex and how they placed it in the society. I hear using the sex word a lot on YouTube could get your content like cancelled. So we're going to use the normal word that people use out there, twa twa, or the deed. We're going to use the deed. When I'm referring to sex, I'm going to say, instead of sex, I'm going to say the deed or the do, something like that. But I know you get the gist. So the maturity of the deed in traditional African society, when African society was African society, way before colonization, and when Africans revered God and made sure that from childhood, teenagehood, young adults, actual adults, and the elderly would always adhere to purity, the deed was also very much revered. The deed was, hi, it's almost my birthday. My name is Angela. Happy birthday. Happy birthday in advance. When is your birthday? Welcome to my sex talks. We're talking about the maturity of sex. You're most welcome to contribute to the topic. So, I was saying in African society, everybody was taught to revere God and to do what pleased God, and most importantly, to respect the entity of God and to respect the place of the deed. I want to say the sex, but I have to remember to use the deed. So it used to be that children, when they were small, because in African society, we never used to have schools, but we still had an education system. And even the Europeans used to come to our universities because we had a lot of varsity of information. So when I think about the deed, children used to be, our education used to be oral. And the elderly are the ones who began the education for the children. Because, like in Kikuyu culture, we used to be farmers. And the mothers and fathers would go to the farm. The younger boys, like 10, 12, there would go to look after the flock, and the teenagers would go help in the farm and all that. So the smaller children would be left behind in the homes with the grandparents, and the grandparents would teach these children. And let me tell you, the truth about life is that children are the most selfish versions of ourselves because they take care of themselves only. A child will cry because it's hungry, will cry because it's wet, and does not really care about anything but its own needs. But we as parents, we as the community, help the child to grow and to know that there's a better way to address your issues. There's a better way to, like, you don't need instant gratification with everything. So the elderly were the ones who would teach the children first, and they would teach them with stories, and they would folk tales, and they would teach them with songs. So as time went by, they would initially start using stories with animals like the hare and the hyena, the tortoise and the hare, the crocodile and the hare. These stories were entertaining and they had lessons, and these lessons were later meant to, now when you grow older, you relate. Let's use a basic story of the hare and the tortoise. The Hare and the Tortoise is a story of when the hare had a race with the tortoise. But the hare felt very arrogant, knowing that it is faster than the tortoise. So it demeaned the tortoise. By demeaning the tortoise, it went ahead to like run ahead and sit under a tree, knowing that the tortoise will not catch up, saying, "Ah, I can just take a nap and I'll wake up and win the race because anyway, it's just a tortoise." So the tortoise, humbly knowing that it's slower, was just determined, hoping by some chance it could win. The chances were very low, knowing it's a tortoise, but at least it had the confidence and the courage to try in the first place. So the hare is sleeping under a tree. The tortoise gets to that tree, still slowly surpasses the tree, and goes on to win the race. And everybody in the animal kingdom is shocked, like, how can a tortoise beat a hare in a race? But the lesson in it is that the attributes like humility, confidence, believing in yourself are very important. For our children, when they were small and left in the hands of our elders, these are the stories they were given, stories about animals. When you think of a story of like the crocodile and the hare, the crocodile used to always, okay, the story of the crocodile and the hare goes that there was a mango tree across a river. On the mango tree were Thank you so much, Dolphin. On the mango tree were monkeys, and in the river were crocodiles. So the crocodile goes and tells the hare, I want a mango. But then the way he asks for it, it's proud and arrogant and everything. But the trick is that he does not even actually want the mango. Crocodiles don't eat vegetables and stuff, they eat meat. It wants the hare. So it hoped to trick not the hare, the monkey. It hopes to trick the monkey to get the mango, and in the process of giving the mango, it gets the monkey. But the monkey is clever and is like, I can see through the trick. So what does the monkey do? It's just like plays around with the crocodile, and then the crocodile is like, this monkey is not going to give in. So he gets rude about it and says, even the mangoes are not sweet. Oh, I don't know what. And the whole thing just ends that way. And that's how the monkey lives to see another day to enjoy the mangoes. So those are the stories that were told to our children when they were small and left in the hands of our elders. As these children grew, they were given small responsibilities by their mothers and fathers. Like girls would be told to like clean after themselves, do little chores like sweeping, little chores like tidying up, little chores like helping feed the younger children, little chores like peeling potatoes, orienting things. Things don't just happen. And when this young girl now starts getting breasts, the mother can tell that this is a young woman in progress. We're talking about the maturity of sex, maturity of the do. We're getting there slowly. So now, the mother can tell that this girl is no longer a toddler, not a child. Something is happening. Our bodies develop in different ways. So there's one with the breast will come first, another one the calves will come first, but the ultimate definition of a woman is her period, even in traditional African society. Rumors have it that we used to be married off at the age of, I don't know, 5, 6. Okay, there were those societies. But I'm telling you about my Kikuyu society. There was a mutaratara. That was how things were done in the right way to make sure that by the time you're getting to the do, you're mature. So we are at the point where the child is now between a child and a teenager. The changes are coming in. And for the boys were known to be very rowdy, all over, jumpy all over. But when this boy is now becoming a young man, he becomes calmer. His voice becomes deeper. His way of doing things is more strategic than that of a child. When he's sent on an errand by a parent, he's faster. And now the father and the mother can tell that this is not a child. This is a young man informing. So now the lessons initially used to be by the grandparents. Now the role of the lessons now move to the father and mother and younger adults, to the brothers and sisters who can now communicate with this child who's now not a child and not yet a teenager, ako hapo katikati, is in the middle. The sisters and brothers and the elder children now advise this child on the things that happen, the responsibilities that he has in society. He's no longer now going to be left in the household playing. He has roles. The boys have to look after the flock. They have to help with getting firewood. They have to help with manly duties, because you're molding this child slowly. We're talking about the maturity of the maturity of sex. So slowly by slowly, things were brought to us, not rush, but depending on where you are. So, when now a woman, a boy, eventually would get circumcised. Okay, even girls would have circumcision, but depends on the culture. But when a girl, let's forget about FGM because it's a very controversial subject. In some societies, it was very detrimental, but in some societies, there is how they used to do it and it was okay. But now we're just talking, let's talk about the period. When the period came for a girl, the mother knew that now this is another woman. This one can become a mother. This one, I have to be a little bit more strict. And in the African society, and even today, some mothers have a hard time talking to their daughters about these things, about the deed. And it's okay. That is why in a household, it's not just a mother who's responsible for a child. We have aunties and we have uncles. The boys after circumcision were given to their uncles so that they can talk about these matters of manhood. They were put in groups with elders and they were educated on now this new phase. Because after circumcision, what is the next rite of passage in an African society? It is marriage. And marriage is the right place for what? For the deed. You see how things flow? Things have order and things have a particular way of flowing. So, the girl has now started her period. The mother will talk to her. The grandmother will change the story. It's not about crocodiles and hares anymore. It's about that now you're a young woman and now you can actually be a mother. So, how are you going to transition into motherhood in the right setting of marriage? In the right setting that you understand how this thing is done. How are you going to please your husband when that day comes? How are you going to take care of your household? Remember, in African society, there is no divorce. There is polygamy, where a man can take several wives, but there is no divorce. Divorce today is accepted because sometimes some relationships can be toxic. But I can always say if this issue of the deed could be addressed and could be approached in a mature way from the very beginning, then there would be no need for divorce. So this girl would not, just because she's gotten her period does not mean she's going to go and get married. Pap. The next morning, they're not looking for a husband for her. Those are the stories I know the Westerners have been telling people like, oh, you just get married off, like they're even looking. No, the aunties would the aunties and the uncles, the whole society was working to molding the young boys and the young girls now. The boy who's now been circumcised, whose voice is broken, you can tell that this is a young man in formation. And the woman whose breasts are out here, her hips are out there, and her period is already in the house. They are now going to teach her the right way to address the deed, the maturity that we're talking about. So how it would happen? The boys have been for a long time in the fields with the cattle, with the men. The girls have been with their aunties, their grandmothers, and their fellow girls. So they have never gotten a time to mingle. And yet these people are expected to stay in the same household one day as a couple. So what would happen? In our society, we loved having a lot of fun. And there were always these festivals in market centers. So the girls now are old enough to go and mingle with the boys. But of course, with caution, because no mother wants to let her girl go to a festival and then this is wired. What do you mean by wired? I don't know what you mean, but if you mean weird, I don't know what you mean. I'll just ignore you quietly. If you have a question, if you have something respectable to say, I appreciate. But disrespect, I will not have it. I have removed you. So as I was saying before, this guy is saying I don't know what this is weird and all that. I was saying now these girls and boys have to mingle, and the mingling has to be done in the right way. So the aunties would tie a knot. In our traditional outfits, there was how there would be a knot tied in your privates, like a particular note that if a man would do the deed with a girl, this knot would be untied. And when you go home as a girl, the first thing is the knot to be inspected. Why? Remember, it's a society that upholds purity. It's a society that cares about what God thinks about them. It's a society that wants the young children, the young generation to transition into marriage and to have the deed in the proper setting. So everything will be done in honor of these youth. And the youth, of course, when you're young, you're not very rational in your thoughts. But the elders, the society would make sure you get there the right way somehow. That's why the knot was tied. So now you would go to these festivals and you would mingle, talk to the boys, even notice the boy that you like. But at the end of the day, you two would not really do anything because that knot is there and the way it's tied. If you return home and it's not that way, it's a whole issue. That is a traditional setting. Now you know how our African girls would now eventually get married as virgins and how they would actually have mingled and know how to talk to young men even before they got married, how they would be educated by their aunties and their grandmothers and their mothers on how to be on their roles. And by the time they get into a marriage setting, they are proper young wives. So don't go being deceived that we just used to be thrown into the thing. It's actually now that in the society we are living in that we find ourselves just thrown into marriage because nobody actually talks to us about what happens. Jeffrey John, hello. So now let's talk about the maturity of the deed or maturity of sex in a modern society. Forgive me to say that people could be as old as their 40s and 50s and still be very immature about the deed in the society that we are living in. It could actually just be seen as an act of physical gratification without it being decoded the right way. But why do we need to decode the deed? We need to decode the deed because every action has a consequence. And if the consequence is not a disease, an STD, could be pregnancy. And if it's not pregnancy or a disease, it could be soul ties. And these are detrimental. You do not want to be carrying the burdens of other people in yourself. You subscribe. Thank you. I appreciate. You do not want to be carrying the energies of other people because you know when you're doing the deed, there is scientifically the transfer of DNA because of the fluids involved. Transfer of DNA. Spiritually, there's a transfer of energies. You do not want to be getting yourself energies of a person who is broken, of a person who's been out there with a million people, and whoever she has been with, when this person does the deed with you, it's like you've been with all those people. You do not want you getting yourself in such a situation. That is why the deed needs maturity. You know? And at the same time, you do not want to get into the deed and then find yourself in early pregnancies or unwanted pregnancies. You do not want to find yourself in such a situation. Children are a blessing, no matter how they come into this world. But let us not lie to ourselves. If you get a child when you think you're just having fun, when you don't have means to provide for this child, when you do not know the end or the tail, you're in school, you just started working. This man and you have not even sat down and discussed like what is the nature of our relationship. You do not want to bring a child in such a setting where you're begging. You know, these days people have normalized baby daddies and being a baby mama. They have normalized, but that is not the proper setting for a child. It takes two, a man and a woman, to make this child. It should take two to raise this child. That is why, again, I emphasize on the maturity of the deed, maturity of sex. So, why? Oh, okay. That is if you're lucky enough to not catch some gonorrhea, some STD, some HIV, maybe some syphilis, if you're lucky. So, how is the maturity of sex in a modern society supposed to be viewed, and how does it come across? Don't be shy. Don't be guilt. Don't feel guilty for liking somebody. Anybody can like anybody. Don't feel bad for being attracted sexually to someone. It can happen, and it happens to all of us. There is nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. But be confident enough to tell this person, this is how I feel, your partner. This is how I'm feeling about you. And this is what I want. Before you undress, yeah, I read a quote yesterday. Before it was meant to the men, and also there's a way you can twist it to also address the woman. Before you undress and impregnate her, think, is this person the person you want to spend your whole life with? Before, even we women these days are very comfortable, we can also undress the men. Before you undress this man, think, is this the man I want for a husband? They say that when you're in the deed is the one time you should not be talking. Like when you're now in the actual physical deed, you should not attempt to make promises telling this person, I will love you forever, I will never leave you, I will never be with another person. Because at the end of the day, words are spells. If there is a powerful way of casting a spell, is using your words. So be very careful with the words that you say, with the promises that you make this person. Because if you do not keep these promises, at the end of the day, they'll be what will eat you up. Because you promised and you broke a promise, and a promise is a debt. So this maturity comes in before you undress each other as a man and woman. Ask yourselves, what are we getting ourselves into? If it's casual, you can always use protection, but protection will not really protect you from the spirits and the energies of this person. Just because you like somebody, do not let them pressure you into doing the deed just because you like them and you're thinking, like, if I do the deed, I won't lose them. There are consequences. I personally really try and avoid getting into the deed with somebody who cannot talk about it, who cannot talk about, like, what are we doing? If you would like to proceed, what are we doing? What if things don't go as planned? You might use protection and it could be expired. Doesn't work. You might use protection and condoms burst all the time. That can happen. You might use protection, but the other diseases you can catch orally, like HPV and even herpes, So knowing consequences. We have girls in our society today walking around who are supposed to be mothers, but their secret is in the toilet flushed. What am I talking about? I'm talking about abortions. And abortion is murder. In as much as you want to look at it from whatever sense, it is still murder. There are situations that abortion is acceptable if a girl was raped, clearly. That one is somehow acceptable. It is actually 100% acceptable. But if a girl was out there in her sober mind, meeting up with men, a man or men, and gets herself pregnant and decides to abort that child, they should not lie to themselves that that is acceptable because, oh, I have dreams, oh, I have to finish school, oh, I have to do it, I don't know what. You should have done these things first. Do them first. I'm going to be harsh about it. Do them first, then go now and start meeting up with men. That is my understand. That is the right way. Actually, it's not meant. We will not make excuses for immaturity in sex. We will not make excuses for men and women leaving their spouses and going out there collecting all manner of diseases and all manners of energies and bringing them back home. Maturity. It's not just about pleasure. Actually, sex is a bonding. The deed is a bond. You create a bond with somebody, and that is why you need to be mature about it, knowing that things could, if you're planning just pleasure, things could go beyond pleasure. And what if they do go beyond pleasure? How do we approach it? People have different ways of being pleased in bed. There are things that I want done to me as a woman. I am more of touch, physical touch, and a man is more about physical, like sight. Whatever he sees pleases him. I have pleasure points. I should be able to tell you, touch me here, touch me this way, do this and that, without shame. But there are settings where you're like, you're with this man just for his money. He is not even reaching 20% of your goals in the deed, but you're like, oh, well, he has money. You should be able to talk. You should be able to discuss things. It's about intimacy. It's about intimacy. Look into my eyes. It's not we're in total darkness because we just want to put the key and lock together and just enjoy those few minutes. It's about we are able to look into each other's eyes. We are able to see into each other's souls. We are able to be mature about this and know that whatever consequences, we will handle them together. There will be nobody running away because whatever happened, and there will be nobody chasing, he's ameniacha niko na mimba, I have to look for this man. No. So that is why the deed must be approached with a lot of maturity, because no matter how much we want to pretend, it comes with a lot of consequences. Consequences that go as deep as ruining your esteem because he ghosted you. Consequences that go as far as broken families because he cheated. Consequences that go as far as divorce because you one day sit together and realize that we walked into this deed, both of us broken people, both of us needy, both of us immature, and we were using each other in a codependent way. I am not whole, you are not whole. Yet the deed is supposed to be by two people, not like supplementing each other, complementing each other, but two whole people with sober minds coming together to enjoy something that's divine. Something that is divine. But if you're not whole or you have all these issues, I would advise you stay away from the deed. It comes with consequences and you cannot run away from them. You might be lucky enough not to catch an STD. You might be lucky enough to not get pregnant, but you will not be lucky enough to avoid the energies and to avoid the soul ties with this person. So before you undress him, before you undress her, address her. Address her. And if you two people meet that the guy is just there for fun and you're thinking you're supposed to be in a relationship, walk away till you meet the man who is willing to be in a relationship, until he meets the woman who's willing to just be used. There are those who are okay with the whatever setting, but let both of you be on the same page. So that's it for me on the maturity of sex. I hope you enjoy the lesson. I hope you take what works for you, and whatever does not work for you, leave it for someone else. And I wish you a blessed and fun-filled week. Till tomorrow. Bye.